Welcome to the E-commerce Badassery Podcast, the place for scrappy entrepreneurs who want to learn actionable steps and strategies to grow the traffic, sales, and profit in your e-commerce business. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster, a 20-year retail veteran and former brick-and-mortar boutique owner who spent 3 years as the only employee of a 7-figure online store. That shit was crazy. I know exactly how it feels to do all the things, and I'm sharing everything I learned the hard way so you don't have to. I may have started this business by accident, but supporting badass bosses like you lights me the fuck up, and I am so stoked to see you grow. Are you ready, babe? Let's roll. Welcome back to the E-commerce Badassery Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster. Well, friends, with the passing of H.R. 1, the reconciliation bill, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, there are several changes coming down the pipeline that we have to talk about. I'm going to start out with things that affect any product-based business that sells to U.S. customers, like tariffs and the de minimis exception. And then we'll get into health insurance changes that will affect everyone in the U.S., even if you get your coverage through an employer-sponsored plan. This ongoing tariff saga has been nothing but chaotic, and unfortunately, that chaos and uncertainty is going to continue for now. Earlier this year, Trump announced sweeping reciprocal tariffs, sometimes called the Liberation Day tariffs, that would slap a universal 10% duty on nearly all imported goods, plus additional country-specific rates. These tariffs were set to kick in back in April, but they were put on hold for what was supposed to be a 90-day negotiation period, with Trump promising 90 deals in 90 days. Well, that deadline was originally set to expire tomorrow, July 9th, but as of last week, the White House officially extended the pause until August 1st to allow more time for talks. So far, only a handful of tentative agreements have been announced and nothing has been finalized. And there has been conflicting information coming from White House officials, some saying the phone has been ringing off the hook with countries wanting to make deals and others saying none of the countries have engaged in negotiations at all. At this point, instead of conventional trade negotiations, Trump has been saying he's going to send a letter to each country specifying what their tariff rates will be. If no deals are reached by the new deadline, we could see those original reciprocal tariffs be implemented, and I covered them initially on episode 323 if you want a refresher on those details. Ultimately, as of right now, the tariffs are still on hold, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens at the beginning of next month. Something we did get clarity on in this bill is the change to the de minimis exemption. This is the rule that lets you order products from overseas and skip paying import duties if the shipment value is under $800. Earlier this year, Trump removed this exemption for packages from China, Hong Kong, and Vietnam, but kept it in place for all other countries. So if you're based in Canada, the UK, the EU, and sell to customers in the USA, as long as the purchase was under $800, it was still exempt from any tariffs. H.R. 1 changes that. Starting July 1st, 2027, the de minimis exemption will end for every country. After that date, all imports, regardless of value, will be subject to custom duties. The good news is you have 2 years to prepare, and things could change before it takes effect. Being that it's actually written into law this time, though, there's no guarantee that would happen. It would require a new law through Congress, potentially court cases, or new trade deals that include a provision guaranteeing carve-outs for specific countries. The bad news, as discussed in previous episodes, this is going to change cross-border selling as we know it. If you are outside the US, but majority sell to US customers, it might be time to start building up more of a local footprint or to expand it to other countries that don't have excessive tariffs. If you're going to continue to sell to US customers even after the de minimis is revoked, there are a few things you can do to be more transparent with your customers. While it's not your responsibility to collect and remit these duties on your customers' behalf, it might be in your best interest to do so. As many of us saw at the beginning of this implementation, customers were taking to social media to complain, and ultimately, everyone ends up blaming the retailer because they don't understand how tariffs work. While it does take a bit of extra effort on your part, it will help to limit confusion and customer service issues. The easiest way to do this is install an app that can surface tariff charges as a separate line item at checkout, and then purchase duty-paid labels so your customers don't get hit with a separate bill. I'll stick links in the show notes with some resources for that. And I recommend that you show it as a separate line item versus just building it into the price of your products, because if the customer returns something, you don't get a refund on that duty. If you've baked it into your prices, you're still going to end up losing money on these. Now, if you manufacture overseas and import your finished goods, then it might be time to look at bonded warehouses. Bonded warehouses allow you to hold goods typically up to 5 years and means you don't have to pay the duties on those items until you sell them and ship them to a U.S. customer. If you end up selling that product internationally, aka re-exporting it, say to a Canadian customer, you don't have to pay the U.S. tariff. If you're importing a high volume of goods, this can make a huge difference in your cash flow, not needing to shell out all of those duties up front. Bonded warehouses do come with lots of regulation to be compliant, but there are 3PLs that offer bonded warehouses, so you might be better off outsourcing it versus trying to take this on your own. Ultimately, you do have time before you have to worry about this, and things could change, but the sooner you start planning, the better. All right, if you're not based in the US, you can skip the rest of this episode because now I want to chat about the changes to health insurance and taxes in the US. And this affects you even if you're covered through an employer-sponsored insurance plan, say through a full-time job or a spouse. The biggest change to the ACA is the removal of the enhanced subsidies in the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. I won't get into all the nitty-gritty here. It's a little bit complicated because it's based on your income compared to the poverty level. It's very convoluted, but essentially, there was an expansion in who was eligible for subsidies and an increase in the subsidy itself. That is all going away and will be back at pre-2021 levels. And it starts with your 2026 enrollment on November 1st. If you're not sure what your current subsidy is, you can find it on your eligibility document. Log into healthcare.gov or your state's portal and you'll find it there. The subsidy listed there is likely to get lower or go away altogether. But this might depend on where you live. There are certain states, California, New York, New Jersey, Washington, Colorado, Connecticut, Vermont, and Massachusetts, who already have state subsidy programs. They might expand them to cover more people, but I don't think there's anything set in stone yet, so keep your eyes and ears peeled. There are also big changes to Medicaid, which start at the beginning of 2027. States are given a year to implement the changes, so you'll likely see rolling effects depending upon where you live. When we talk about cuts to Medicaid, it's easy to think they only impact the people who actually have Medicaid coverage, but in reality, these changes ripple out to affect everyone, no matter how you get your insurance. Insurance only works because everyone pays into the same pot and the costs are shared across a big, diverse group of people. That's your risk pool. When people lose Medicaid because of tighter eligibility, more paperwork, or work requirements, they don't magically stop needing healthcare. They still get sick, still have emergencies, and still end up in the hospital, even more so because they likely lose the ability to get preventative care. The difference is, without coverage, they can't pay their bills. Hospitals and clinics have to absorb these unpaid costs, and over time, that uncompensated care gets passed along to everyone else in the form of higher charges to private insurance and higher premiums for businesses and self-employed people. The bill does include a rural health transformation fund to help states prevent hospital closures, but it's unclear if it's enough to cover the expected shortfall. I don't want to get too in the weeds here. You can do your own research on this, but the point is the healthcare and insurance industry is going to have to make up this shortfall somewhere. and that's likely going to be reflected in our insurance premiums. What's unclear is when these increases will hit. While the Medicaid changes don't go into effect until 2027, I would pay close attention to any changes during the next enrollment period at the end of the year for your 2026 coverage, because they might decide to start increasing premiums in anticipation of these changes. Before we wrap up, I want to flag a few other areas in HR1 that you might want to look into, especially as a self-employed person running a product-based business. Mainly that some of the tax rules from the 2017 tax reform have been extended or adjusted. This includes things like the 20% pass-through deduction, bonus depreciation, and changes to how you can write off research and development expenses. If you're investing in equipment, technology, or even improvements to your space, this could have a big impact on your deductions. This is particularly important if you have a physical location, like a brick-and-mortar retail store or a warehouse, fulfillment space, etc., because there are specific rules around what kinds of renovations or build-outs you can fully expense in the year you do them. For example, upgrading lighting, fixtures, or interiors often qualifies differently than buying the building itself or building it out as a retail space for the first time. I'm not a tax professional. This is not tax advice, so please connect with your accountant or tax strategist. They can help you figure out exactly which changes apply to your situation, what's staying the same, and what is worth planning for before the end of the year. And I know when you first hear all those things, our initial gut reaction is likely stress and confusion, rightly so. While it might make things more complicated or more expensive, it doesn't mean you're doomed. You just have to pivot and make informed choices. You can do and navigate hard things. You've got this. Remember to visit the show notes at ecommercebadassery.com/336 for all the links I mentioned today, including apps and other episodes where I've talked more about all of these things. And whether good or bad for your unique situation, there is a comfort in having some clarity on some of these things. It's unfortunate the tariff situation is still up in the air, but hopefully we'll have a resolution to that soon as well so we can start making plans. If you have questions about this or you're not 100% sure how it's going to affect you or maybe what your next best steps are, I do have a post inside the e-commerce badassery vault where you can comment and ask questions. I've already updated it with this additional information. It should be pinned to the top of the Jessica Says feed. I'm happy to have some conversations over there. And that, my friends, is a wrap on this week's episode. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Have a kick-ass rest of your week, and I'll see you on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more about growing your e-commerce business, get started with my free resource library at ecommercebadassery.com/free stuff and get an invite to the Lounge, my e-commerce marketing membership. When you're ready for one-on-one support, apply to work with me at ecommercebadassery.com/apply. Before you go, would you do me a quick favor? Leave a rating and review and tap that follow button. This pushes me up the chart so I can support more scrappy e-commerce entrepreneurs just like you. I'm on a mission to reach as many as I can, and I could really use your help. Thanks so much in advance. Until next time, e-commerce friend, stay badass.